Welcome to Shanna's and Jamie's Teacher.
This is a series all about our experience as healthcare students. I'm a medical student and Jamie's a pharmacy student. Our experience and the ups and downs of it, some tips and tricks we've learned along the way about work-life balance, trying to strive at our extracurriculars, as well as trying to do well academically. So stay tuned for more. First, we're going to talk about extracurriculars. There's all sorts of different myths about extracurriculars that you can't balance them, or you have to take on a ton to be anything competitive for what you want to do later on. We're going to try to debunk some of these myths and kind of talk about some personal experiences that we had about learning things like how to say no properly, learning quality over quantity, and other tips. So, Jamie, take it away.
Yeah, so the first one that we like to talk about is about hidden opportunities. So there are opportunities where students can easily find on like web pages, or they get emails for different job opportunities, but sometimes they're hidden. And the best way to find about these hidden opportunities is not only to search them online, but also talk about it with your friends. They can suggest you about a grant that they applied, or they went to a certain conference, and you can learn a lot about these opportunities. And once you learn about them, you can also ask them for like tips or advice for applying for these opportunities.
And then to add on to that, besides your friends, also being honest with your mentors about your intentions. So I really wanted to be a clinician scientist, and that's by being honest with some mentors, like, hey, this is what I want to do. And actually, if you know someone or you know of any opportunities, please let me know to get involved in research. And then that actually is open doors. They don't always have something for you, or they don't necessarily have someone to connect you, but sometimes they might think of you, a few months down the line, they come up with this project and someone says, like, hey, I need a student to do this. And do you know anyone who's really keen to do research and is really interested in this? And they think of you. And so just like making that known and being clear about your intentions, I think is really helpful.
The second tip we want to talk about is just do it. So even if it's an award or an opportunity that you think there's a very slim chance of you getting in, you never know. Like even if it's like 2% is better than 0. Like who knows, like maybe this year the applicant pools was a bit less, or the average of it was a bit lower. You never know. And also you can learn from all these applications, so why not?
Recently there was a scholarship that I really wanted to win. I kind of knew that it's really hard to get and I wouldn't have a good chance. I was really going to back out of it, but people like Jamie were telling me, 1% is better than 0, and giving yourself that chance is better than not, taking yourself out of the running before you even try. And so I didn't get it, but I did find that it was helpful for me to learn in terms of that interview style was different from anything I had, and I still got to interact with that person. And so I think I took away something for that, even though I failed it.
Even if like a scholarship or an award doesn't work out, you can always reuse the content that you use for the scholarship for your next scholarship. And you can always revise it, edit it, talk with your friends, get some feedback to make it more competitive for next time.
Our next tip is pre-planning ahead for extracurriculars. So both of us are really type A and we like to plan ahead. But I think that's a really good tip for every semester, not only in your undergrad, when you're in healthcare and beyond. So for us, we always like to think ahead the next semester. So if it's winter, we're thinking about the summer. If it's summer, we're thinking about what we want to do in the fall. And I think that's a really good way because especially in research and extracurriculars, deadlines are always months in advance. For conferences, for scholarships, for trying to get a job for the next summer.
A lot of the times, grants or scholarships, they take time to write them. So if you plan ahead, you know how much time you should allocate for when writing or applying for the award.
And it's also such an art. You think you're just going to write a very simple essay, but really you have to really sit with yourself and think about what are my strengths and what do I actually want to get out of this experience. Like you don't want to just think you're writing superficially about what you want to get out of experience. Like what do you actually want? Do you want to have a really good research experience? Do you want to have a really good clinical experience? And then maybe you'll find that during the self-exploration, you actually don't want to apply through this program. And so that's something to keep in mind that might actually happen.
So planning always makes it better for the student in terms of aligning it with their goals and their long-term plan.
Something to be really considerate about is if you have a reference letter, these people that you need for your references, they're busy.
Yes.
I always try to give them a lot of months. So I remember when I applied to medical school, instead of waiting till the night before, I think I started asking them it was due in like mid-September, and I asked them in like August or something, or maybe end of July, because I really wanted to give them a lot of time to think about it. Or even if I'm not asking them to write it right away, I just want to give them some time to be like, think about like, do they want to apply? And if they don't want to write a reference letter for me, I have time to ask somebody else. And so I think always giving them a lot of time is really important.
So the next one we want to talk about, getting into a program, does it mean that's the end for extracurriculars? A lot of the times when students are applying for a pharmacy school or med school, they allocate a lot of time in their school life to extracurricular activities or research opportunities. But that doesn't mean that it ends once they get into medical school or pharmacy school. In fact, there may be even more opportunities for you to pursue. You're in a class with amazing students. They may be smarter, they may be very inspiring, and to learn and to also grow as a person, engaging in more extracurriculars can be a great way to learn.
Mm-hmm. And then on the topic of networking, and not only are you meeting really like-minded, motivated peers to inspire yourself, you're also interacting with more mentors. So definitely the best way to really meet mentors is through these extracurriculars. You're getting to know them, they're getting to know you on a personal level, and it opens those sorts of great doors. Like, not necessarily you're going to work with them, they're going to be your reference letter, but just I feel like I've learned a lot of life lessons just working with mentors. And even just mentors, I mean just like an upper year student in a third year or something that just really telling me things that they wish they knew a year ago. And so those are really great opportunities you get from an extracurricular.
It's also important to find a balance in terms of doing extracurriculars and balancing school or work. So it's really important for students to acknowledge their limitations. Sometimes we like to take on a lot of things. So it's important to self-reflect and see how much you can take on this semester or for this year. So like we mentioned before, pre-planning can definitely help setting your limitations for the year.
And then on the topic of that, acknowledging, are you taking on too much? And then I also think it's really good to sit back and evaluate, are you enjoying all of it? Mm-hmm. So for example, for me, I really hate answering lots of emails at admin work, as much as those are really important. So I tried not to sit on too many things where I have to be on a committee or doing a lot of admin work. And I try to think, like, what is giving me energy? And so realizing things for me, mentorship, being in a lot of collaborative teamwork, working with someone who inspires me, things like that. And just like thinking about, like, do I feel good in this? Do I feel like I'm learning and growing? And also maybe I've been doing the same thing or working on the exact same team of people for too long, so like for a number of years. And I feel like I'm too much in my comfort zone because I know these people so well and I'm not challenging myself anymore. Sometimes I think like it's too much of a good thing, so it's time to move on and find myself in a place where I'm actually feeling uncomfortable.
Definitely pros and cons in staying with like the same supervisor or staying with the same group of friends or same group of teammates. You get more comfortable, so maybe it gives you more opportunities to expand on what you're doing. But at the same time, you're working with the same group of people, meaning you may be following like the same routine or following the same work procedures. So giving yourself a bit of a change can definitely be helpful in terms of learning new skills, learning new techniques. So that's another thing to be aware of.
Do you find with your own extracurriculars that you've been doing since you've been in pharmacy school, have you been sticking to the same ones or have you been changing them up?
In terms of research, I've been staying with the same supervisor for almost like 3 years. But in between, I try to engage myself in with different supervisors with different research projects. And it's definitely a different experience for sure. Like, I could still be using the same research skills, but just being in a different dynamic, working with different people, working with different supervisors, learning what their style is definitely important. And I feel like as a healthcare professional or as a student, it's important to be flexible and learn and be easily adaptable to change.
Mm-hmm. So for example, on that topic of working with different people, so I've had supervisors that are really, they believe in like free flow, and that's how they get a lot of stuff done. And I've also had some supervisors that are believing in like structure, micro planning, and that also makes them super successful. So I try to fuse a few elements of both, and so the best of both worlds is you learn from everyone.
Yes, and I feel like it's like the best as a student. It's like the best time to experiment. So like if you have the chance, try to expose yourself to different experiences and opportunities when you can.
So I guess on the topic of exposing yourself, something that I struggled with before was feeling like a certain activity didn't fit with my image. And so trying to get out of that perception and really going out of your comfort zone is actually really important. I can think of a key example when I was in high school. I always thought of myself as more of like a nerdy, kind of quiet person, and then I really wanted to try ice hockey. And that's just doesn't fit with my image, and so I'm really glad that I did. And I was like, you know what, I'm just going to try it. Don't like it. I'm not going to judge it because I don't think it fits my image. I'm just going to judge it whether or not I actually like doing the activity or not. And trying to separate that, right? And so instead of thinking what other people think about what I like and what I think. And so I'm really glad I did that because it actually really shaped me in some ways. And also it helped me realize that I'm not just one type of identity. I'm not just a nerdy person, or I'm not just whatever. I like that I can have a broader personality and a bit of experience. And so I'm really thankful for doing that. And so hopefully that's something that encourages me to try to continuously step out of my comfort zone.
Like research to a lot of students are intimidated or they have they have thoughts on that research can be really tedious and boring, but you never know until you try. So like if it's an opportunity that you always wanted to try, or if it's an opportunity that may not be what you expect, but it may be something that you may potentially be interested in, there's nothing harmful, nothing wrong in trying it out and then see. It's better than regretting later that, oh, never tried, or you missed this opportunity, than trying it out. And then even if you don't like it, you actually learn that maybe this isn't for you, so you can try something else next time.
To link back to what we were talking about earlier about taking on too much, to learning to find balance, we want to talk about how to say no to opportunities. We were both talking about how it's like when you're someone who loves opportunities and getting really involved, it's really easy to say yes to all these really great opportunities you get involved in. And definitely, I feel very privileged as a healthcare student to be offered a lot more things than I was able to access when I was an undergrad, and all super interesting, meaningful work. But sometimes at some point there's too much and you feel really burned out. So I definitely felt burned out, even in med, just like I think last semester, first semester of second year, I was just doing too much and just really stretched thin, not sleeping enough, not just feeling like always very, very busy instead of balanced. And when you get too busy, you actually start forgetting the meaning of what you're doing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, because you want to do it when it's meaningful to you, you feel really energized by it, and you love it. But sometimes when it's taking up too much of your time, or you're taking on a lot, you start like kind of feeling resentful to it, and even though you actually loved it. And so something to be like really watched for. That's my sign that I don't like it, if I start feeling resentful.
For me too, like burning out doesn't mean much until you actually experience burned out. It's definitely not pleasant. You don't like I didn't feel like refreshed even with plenty of sleep, and even if it's like opportunities that I was like initially very interested in, if you're just doing too much and you don't have you don't get enough rest, then even the exciting things may not seem as exciting anymore. So one of the things that can prevent you from being burned out is saying no at appropriate times. So this can be when you acknowledge your limitations, and we understand that it's really difficult to say no. Like we all want to be part of like exciting opportunities, but sometimes it's more about quality over quantity.
And so some of our tips for saying no is when you say no, but you did want to do it, for example, you were too busy, to just acknowledge that you're super grateful that they gave you this opportunity, because it's really nice of them. So thank them always. But then, tell them why you're unable to take this. So you're saying, I've already committed to this project, and if I took this on, I wouldn't be able to do a good job, and that would be letting this project down. And so, and then I also think it's nice, then the third one is like, leave the door open. So if you are interested in this project, then you say, but because I'm very busy, but if you have something similar down the road, I'd love to work with you. So then they know to contact you again. And so I think like acknowledging that you are open and grateful to have another opportunity like this. And I also think, like, for example, if you're doing it not because you're too busy, but that just doesn't suit your interest, I think it's okay to acknowledge that. So if someone's telling you to do help you with this initiative, it's just not what you're passionate about, you can be like, you know what, I really want to work with you, or I want to work on something like this, but not for this particular cause. If you have some other opportunity, please feel free to let me know though, or can I support you in some other way, maybe not as involved. Also, like, maybe there's something else, or maybe if I change my mind and I reevaluate things, I'll let you know. Just something like that. Just keeping that open. But, that said, if you don't actually want to do it, then don't make fake promises, because you want to be a reliable person who's honest to your word.
Especially in like a healthcare, in the healthcare profession, the world's quite small. And so you don't want to be on anyone's bad terms. And in terms of like more tips on how to say no, one of the ways to acknowledge your limitations is start less. So I guess for upper years like us, we like experimented different strategies. We experienced burned out. We had like personal experiences, and so I guess we learned it a bit of the hard way of figuring out what our limitations are. But if you're in like first year, or if you're in your beginning stages of your studies, it's best to just start less and then build up. There's so many years of undergrad or in like professional schools for you to expand, and there's always summers, there's always opportunities that may show up. So you're not missing out when you're stepping back and just focusing on what you can handle. More doesn't mean it's better.
No, when I first started medical school, I asked I think a third year at the time, I was like, how much research time should I promise if I'm looking for a new supervisor? And his advice was to promise a really low number, like promise low and then over deliver. And so, for example, I was like, realistically, I think I could spend at least 10 hours a week. His idea was to kind of promise something small, like 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. And so starting with that number that you promise really small, because you don't really understand that burden, exactly how much time you need to study. And then also I would say, like, for that first half of school, like the first semester of school, I think instead of throwing yourself totally into extracurriculars, I do think it's good to get to some, but I think it's really important at the time that you're actually building connections with your classmates and your friends, and just learning to like do a bit of self-care. I think it's a big adjustment to remember, and also learning to build that big support community you need is actually really, really, really important.
This is the end for this episode, so we hope you found it really helpful, and please stay tuned for the upcoming episodes on personal life, in terms of how self-care, community care. There's a lot more coming up. So thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.